But some draft announcements have come out. Got some guys going to the NFL, and one that kind of hurts a little bit, but just very expected. And then two that I think are probably the best for everyone involved. AZ Thomas goes to the NFL. Certainly, in talking with some people, think that he could be probably a day 2 pick, but a top 100 pick. I think that he's going to test incredibly well and has a ton of potential. So it kind of stinks to see him go. I wouldn't have mind backing up the Brinks truck and bringing him back for another year just because he's so good out at corner. I do like a lot of our young guys. And then Farmer and Jackson also made their intentions known to go to the league. Haven't seen anything with Pat Payton yet. Again, that'll probably drop as we're recording this because that's just how things work out. But those are the 3 that have declared for the draft. Josh Farmer, who I do think, is it best for all parties involved that Farmer probably same thing with Jackson. I think Farmer played pretty well this year. His effort was still there. What kind of leadership were you getting there? I don't know. Jackson, kind of the same thing. I thought he played okay down the stretch, but 3 guys headed to the NFL. I actually think all 3 get drafted. AZ Thomas, I have no doubts about. Farmer, I'm pretty sure too. And I think Jackson will test well. And I think he's got a lot of upside, high potential, maybe around 4, 5, 6 guy. I don't think he's like a high pick by any means, but I actually think all 3 get drafted. And, best of luck to those guys. Did they have the season, that they wanted this year? Did we do the things that we wanted to do? No, but I, certainly am not going to wish ill for any of those guys and hope they do have successful careers in the NFL.
Yeah, no, with Farmer and Jackson, it's, again, the defensive line, to me, even more so than the offensive line this year, was the biggest disappointment of the team because I thought they were going to be a completely dominant group. I thought the offensive line would be solid, had a chance to be really good, and they were a disappointment as well. But I think the defensive line was more of a disappointment. And I don't think, when you talk about Farmer or Jackson, I don't think they ever had their heart in that Florida State. They wanted to play college football at a high level, and they wanted to make as much money as they could, which I have no problem with at all. Because I would do the same thing, but they were never fully invested, in my opinion, in Florida State. But yeah, AZ Thomas, that's the one that burns a little bit. And I agree with you. His combine numbers are going to be off the chart. He might get drafted a little earlier than his game film suggests based on how he's going to test at the combine. So, it's crazy. We're only talking about 3 guys going, potentially being drafted after last year. We had 11 or 12 guys drafted. But that's kind of how quickly things turn around in the college football world these days. But yeah, to your point, I don't wish ill will on any of these players. I wish, Farmer, Jackson, and AZ certainly all the best. And I hope they all get drafted high and make as much money as possible, get a nice signing bonus. But we'll see what happens.
Back to chatting with Richie, but first I want to give some love to our friends over at the Mango Board. Listen, it may be cold here in Florida right now. It may be December, but you can still run to your store, local grocer, grab you a couple of mangoes. We appreciate the Mango Board for their support of not only FSU athletics, what they've done to partner with them in several different sports, but also our channel this season. Listen, the season didn't go the way we wanted it to, but you literally cannot be upset while you are eating a mango. And so go grab a couple the next time you're at your local grocer. We appreciate the Mango Board for all of their support. Again, not only of Florida State and their athletics, but also our channel. I do think, I think Pat Payton gets drafted too. Do you think I think Pat Payton.
If he leaves, he will. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think that, his upside, he certainly didn't play super well this year. And certainly, was frustrating at times, just whatever. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but yeah, I do think he can get drafted. And so I think you're looking at 4 guys getting drafted. Okay, here's one. Obviously they're out of eligibility, right? But could Fitz or Mastro get drafted?
I don't know if maybe a 7th round, but that's tricky because how often do NFL teams pick a kicker or punter when they know they can easily find one that is as a UFDA? So I don't. I think Fitz has certainly earned that. I mean, the Bucks were dumb enough to take Roberto Aguayo in the second round. And nothing against Roberto. I love him. But a second round on the kicker is wild. But Fitz had a phenomenal season. He should win the Groza.
Yeah, and Mastro should win the Ray guy as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would be it would be funny if that's how Florida State got to 4 or more, 5 drafted if
Yeah,
one
our
of those
punter and
two
place
guys.
kicker get drafted.
Some portal announcements as well. I'll run through them just really quickly. On scholarship, I'm not as worried about the guys that were walk-ons or whatever
Yeah.
that jumped off. But Durijai, the transfer from West Virginia, never really played this year. Announced for the portal today. Byron Turner, kind of a developmental piece that there was maybe some promise that sometimes just never really, was a massive impact guy. I think you're kind of over recruiting that position. I think they did a good job with edge prospects. As much grief as we've given JP for recruiting, they did a good job down the stretch here with a couple of edge prospects that they're pretty excited about. Duke Cooper announces for the portal. Jackson West, longtime tight end, announces, and then Deuce Spann had announced in late November as well. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scholarship guys leaving through the portal as well. No real shockers there, and I expect more. We've dropped more in the Discord. Guys' names that we kind of expect will also jump in. I think those announcements are going to continue to trickle out, especially once the portal opens tomorrow or today if you're watching the clip. But we talked last week about guys that we didn't want to see go. AZ Thomas was kind of in that grouping of guys we didn't want to see go, but we kind of knew at that point like what was likely coming. And so I thought so far so good, right? I've heard some names, I've heard some whispers of guys that are coming back that were kind of in our grouping of guys we didn't want to see go, young tight ends, young DBs, different people here, there, wherever. But so far with both the draft and the portal announcements that we've gotten, nothing that concerns me, nothing that's like, oh man, don't, UF had a DB jump in that they were like, oh man, that guy's kind of a good DB. I think they've recruited that position well. They'll be fine. That's not even a shot at UF. But so far, so good. We'll see, though, tomorrow when the portal opens, if anything changes or anything gets crazy. But so far, so good. Nobody that has jumped in or left that I'm just heartbroken about or didn't expect. Again, I'd love to have Thomas back. In all reality, I think we've done pretty good so far to start with the portal. We'll see if they can continue to keep the guys together that they want to keep for the future.
Yeah, and I'll never be upset about a kid who decides to, try and take his talents to the next level and going pro, as opposed to one who you'd love to keep who enters the portal. But there's not been a single player who has entered the portal who I said, dang, man, that's going to hurt us next year. Like, and that's no shot against these guys. They might be a better fit somewhere else. I think back about, Jeff Luke, who was a 5-star linebacker who committed to Florida State, had some drama with USC, but ended up actually signing with Florida State and played here. But it never worked out here. He went to Cincinnati and led the country in tackles the next year. So sometimes you do need a change of scenery, but there's nobody so far, knock on wood, that's entered the portal that I'm like, oh my goodness, we really could have used him next year. That could change by the time that you listen to this Monday morning. But yeah, I wish all these kids the best. I will never have ill will towards any of these college athletes who are just trying to figure things out.
No, I will at times, but I just won't say it on here. No, there's definitely some shade I'll throw here or there. But once they started making, 10x what I'm making, then yeah, I'll throw some hate.